guys, and welcome back. You're here with Juzzy and we're looking at Tweaked Rebel. So I haven't posted a video for a couple of months and I just wanted to do a sort of a all-in-one video talking about the common things that people ask me about either on YouTube or Instagram. So even though I haven't posted for a while, I do get lots of comments about this bike, questions. A lot of them are repetitive and they're actually covered in the video content. The bike now has 1,384 kilometers on it. And yeah, haven't had one single issue with the bike, as you'd expect, because I bought it brand new. So of course, yep, just to recap, 2022 Special Edition Rebel 500. And yeah, it's got a whole suite of mods. But I thought I'd talk about some of the common questions that I've seen, as I mentioned. And the first one I wanted to talk about is the seat. So a lot of people buy this bike, and probably the top three questions that you hear about this bike is, particularly for women, they ask about handlebars and what aftermarket bars can you buy. And if you're looking to buy a set of aftermarket bars which will bring the reach of the bars closer to your body, then a drag bar is not for you. You can go to We Bike Japan, and on the We Bike Japan website, they've got a whole suite of top quality bars that will bolt straight on, simply removing the two bolts on either side, removing all of this, and then just popping it back on. It of course involves changing the grips over, but it's very easy to do. And if you look at my drag bar installation video, then you will know what you're up for. If you go to We Bike Japan and you search for Honda Rebel, and then you'll see there's all these categories for different types of the bike, including the handlebars. It's got everything. All the parts that I've bought on this bike, you can also buy through We Bike Japan. The K-Speed parts I bought directly from K-Speed, but if you feel so inclined, you can buy it directly from We Bike Japan. So that's one of the top queries I see, is about handlebar reach. But for men, and I guess for some women, most of the questions is to do with the seat. So people buy this bike and it is a very sloppy handling bike from factory. What I mean by that is it's super comfortable, right? So it's very forgiving bike, it's super soft, but it does not have direct steering in any way. And it's only when you go to replace the suspension that you realize just how soft and forgiving the factory suspension is, but also how you sort of lose touch of the bike. You sort of, you don't feel at one with the bike because it's not so direct in its method of handling. But a lot of people complain about getting a sore backside, and that's because the factory seat is not a heavily padded seat. And so honestly, people keep looking at seats which cost somewhere around $700 for a seat, when the real issue with the bike is not the seat, it's the suspension. So the suspension, yes, whilst it is soft, it's not necessarily soft in all respects. So it might be soft, say for example, on compression, but not necessarily on rebound. And also the weight of a particular person greatly, greatly affects the way that the bike handles and feels for them and them only, or for people who are of the same weight. So if you're under 80 kilograms, then this seat is going to be fine for you. If you're doing research about what parts to buy for your bike, just as I did, and you go by what a whole bunch of American people say on the Facebook groups and in the forums, then you may well feel that you wasted your money by the time you get your bike and you ride it and you find out that it's the suspension. And the reason why the bike feels so soft and sloppy for a person under 80 kilograms is because this bike is indeed intended for the American market, where people are heavier, so on and so forth. So I've said it over and over again in my posts and on my videos. Instead of changing the seat, heavily consider changing the suspension, and in particular, the rear suspension. So a lot of people actually ask, what is this seat? So as you can see, it is diamond stitched. It's actually not a real stitch. It's a sort of an engraved stitch. So I'll get up real close. So it's sort of like an indented stitch. It is the black version of the special edition seat. So when you buy a Honda Rebel Special Edition, at least in 2022, when I bought mine, it came with a brown seat standard, and you could spend $120 to buy a black version. So here at home, I've actually got the brown seat, never used. It's exactly the same. It's a genuine Honda part, and I bought it because I wanted the bike to be all blacked out. It doesn't have any different padding or any different characteristics to the non-special edition seat, which doesn't have any of this diamond sort of stitching appearance. The reason why you buy it is because if you did buy the special edition to take advantage of factory blacked out forks and gaiters, and you wanted the whole bike to be black, then you had the option to buy this seat. And so that's what myself and plenty of other people have done. If you like having a brown seat because you feel that that differentiates your special edition to a non-special edition, then so be it. You'll buy your bike, you'll get a brown seat. It's exactly the same as the black one. It's just simply a color change. But what really makes the bike more comfortable to ride on, and what is the real underlying issue that people just don't get, is that it's actually the rear suspension. So when you buy a rear suspension setup, either from YSS or Öhlins, what you're actually buying is the ability to adjust compression, rebound, which is the suspension trying to naturally come back to its resting position, as well as the ability on the YSS only to adjust ride height by adjusting the bottom nut down here. You won't get that on the Öhlins. There are a couple of different types of shocks from both companies. One that does include the piggyback reservoir, and one that does not. In my case, I haven't tested or ridden the bike that does not have the piggyback reservoir, but I did actually have, of course, the factory rear suspension, a cheap set of rear shocks that I'd purchased from K-Speed, so the Diablo shocks, which you'll find a video about, as well as the YSS one, which I ended up sticking with, which I'm absolutely happy with. If you adjust the suspension to have soft compression and soft rebound, even with a low ride height, and even with the spring tension wound all the way out, so it's not so brutal, you will be super happy with the bike, with the way that the bike rides, and you will not have any inclination to change the seat whatsoever. That is by far and large the most common question that I get on all of my videos. As I said, it's actually becoming annoying, and I hope that this addresses it. And every time someone sends me a question about the seat, I'm going to point them straight to this video. All right, so the next common question, which I'm starting to see in the Facebook groups, is in relation to people installing the genuine Honda Rebel accessory socket. Now, right now, you can't see it on my bike, and that's because later on in my series of videos, I relocated my cluster from here to down here. And it was very easy because the length of the cable is actually shorter coming down here. It comes from somewhere in here. As well as that, I relocated the accessory socket to be underneath this panel here. Now, what happens when you've got a 2023 model is that the socket, which I referred to in my USB Genuine Accessories install video, Still works. It's still exactly the same. In the factory position, there is a wiring harness up here that you've got to wind the tape out to get to the plugs. You connect the two plugs to the factory loom, which basically just has another set of plugs nested away, waiting for you to install it in. It doesn't come from factory that way. But then the problem is that people go to plug in their USB sort of car accessories, cigarette lighter socket into the Honda genuine accessories outlet, and suddenly they see they've got no power. And the first fellow to reach out to me was a person in Western Australia. And then all of a sudden I had a bunch of people from America saying, do you know what's up? I can't get this to work. What it is that if you have a look in one of my other videos where I did an indicator relay install, you actually have to lift this tank up, put it to the side a bit so you don't have to disconnect it. And right up here in the top right hand corner of the motorbike is a relay which is not installed for some reason for the 2023 model onwards. It was up until 2022. So it is a means for Honda to make more money off buyers. And yeah, so you've got to buy a relay. If you want to know what that part number is, I might be so inclined to find it and put it in the description of this post. I haven't installed it, I haven't bought it, but it is a genuine product that you can buy from Honda. You insert it into the relay socket, I guess you could call it, and then that enables the wiring harness to get or give power to the socket. So yes, you do have to buy an additional part. The way I found out about this is I found a post in the Facebook groups. So in the Honda Rebel 500, I think it's 300, 500 and 1000 and Scrambler groups, I think it's called. It's the largest Rebel group on Facebook. In that, if you search for accessory socket or USB socket 2023, you will find the pictures and the part number that you need to get that installed. Okay, so we've touched on the handlebars, the seat/suspension, and the relay. Now in my last video, so they are the most common questions that I see. In my last video, I talked about the wheel covers, and I did a demonstration in that video riding around on the freeway and on the streets, just showing that there's no wheel wobble, and people's perception of, well, if you've got a solid disc, isn't the wind just going to simply blow you over? It doesn't. In that video, I briefly talked about how when you're on the go, when you're riding, your spoked wheels actually, in fact, become just like a disc. And so the wind, no matter whether you've got discs or not, it doesn't blow you about. If you're on a super windy day like today, in Australia, it's 40 kilometre an hour winds on a sunny day, and if you're stopped, then yeah, sure, the difference is then noticeable. If you're stopped at a set of traffic lights and a massive gust of winds comes over, then you may need to just have second thoughts about planting your foot when you're resting and waiting at the traffic lights, etc. Another common question I get about my bike is the exhaust. So in a lot of my first half of the videos I had a twin pipe exhaust, which is commonly seen as sold from K-Speed. I bought a non-genuine one, and this muffler here is a non-genuine one. I bought both of them from AliExpress, and both of them were like under $150 at a guess, I would say. And both of them have been really good. The reason why I changed to this particular one is because what I've realized is, and it's just like with cars, the bigger the barrel, so the more girth you've got from the actual muffler itself, the deeper and throatier the exhaust will sound. So this is just like the last one. It does have the ability to insert a silencer in the mid pipe. So just like the last one, this one uses the mid pipe. In actual fact, I reused the mid pipe that I had from my old twin pipe setup. All I simply did was just unbolted or undid the springs, these clamps on the exhaust, undid that, I think it's a 12 millimeter, and then just slipped this on. I did actually install a new carbon fiber bracket for this muffler. This one, again, I got it from AliExpress. It's decently thick quality. Been riding on it now for a couple of months. Perfect, no cracks, nothing whatsoever. No issues with the hot muffler damaging it in any way. It doesn't move about at all. Super happy with it. And yeah, try to turn a light on to show you, but yeah, it sits straight through. So it's a nice, I think it's a pretty nice looking exhaust, and yeah, certainly it gives more road presence on the road. It is louder, so I'm not running any silencers actually at the moment. When I first bought the bike, you may have seen, or you may recall, that I did a quick video with the silencers, one silencer in, two silencer ins on my twin pipe setup, and then about 1 to 2 months later, I wanted it louder because I didn't want any restrictions, and I could feel that restriction just slightly when I was riding. And then I got to the point where I just changed the muffler just for giggle's sake, because I'd actually bought 2 of these before I bought my bike. And yeah, I've just been really happy with this one. Not that it's for sale, so don't ask me if I'm selling it, but now and then I might just switch it up just for interest's sake. All of the wiring for the bike has been working flawlessly. So in case you're wondering, what's the longevity like? I've only had the bike since about September, and it's now March. So it's only 6 months old, but there are no issues with the brakes, the indicators, any of this whatsoever. The only thing I had an issue of, and it was my own fault, is that I undid this cap just to have a look what it was like inside here. And when I did undo this cap, I didn't tighten it up enough, and the cap for the light actually fell off and I lost it. So I had to order another one from AliExpress, which was pretty cheap, mini bullet style. And in the video where I do an install, you'll be able to see the link down in the video description. As I said, it's the same case for all of the parts I've installed on this bike. A lot of people, and particularly in person, where I ride in Brisbane and park, have asked me in person about this side mount number plate. And it did have a slight change to it from when I did my install video. And that is that I went from one of these aftermarket brackets, which again is in the install video of that video. You'll see a link to where I got it from. I went from one bracket to 2. And yeah, I've just got a bolt on this side, so that even if this bolt here on the swing arm does work itself loose, and I don't think it will because it's got Loctite on it, etc., then if you have a bolt here, it stops this swing arm from falling down straight to the ground and potentially ending up costing you quite a bit to replace everything. So it's not going to go anywhere. It doesn't foul. It doesn't get in the way of the adjustment nut for the suspension. In any case, if you were to adjust the ride height, you'd take the bolt out anyway to undo it. No issues with police ever. And the wiring harness, as you can see, it just goes along the arm, up here, inside the inner side. So it's not inside the coil, of course, so it's not going to get damaged, but it's on the inside of the suspension, so it's nice and neat and out of the way. Underneath here, I've had no issues with the suspension lowered. There's been no rubbing at all. As you can see, the LED's all intact. Everything's intact. When I installed this light, I installed a Phillips head what would you call it, C-clamp to one of these bolts to keep the wiring harness tucked in and away on the sides, so that upon compression and rebound of the suspension, that the wire wouldn't foul the rubber and then end up burning out and then stopping the brakes, indicators, etc. from working. It's all been fine. The Red Dragon forward controls kit has been fine for me as well. I haven't done any adjustments to it since I purchased it. There's been no issues with me changing gears at all, and yeah, it never pops out of gear, nothing like that. You will see here that I have changed though the pedals. So I've gone back to the factory pedals, as you can see, and that's only because the set that I had purchased was nice and comfortable, but it was actually just a tiny bit too wide. So what would happen is that when I go to park my bike, I now park my bike on this side of the garage, and I need to fit my Evo in, and I can't just reverse straight down this driveway because, as you can see, it's quite a steep incline. So I have to drive sort of over here to the left, and then I go out. And my wife's Mazda is parked here on this side, so she's got to park all the way back so that I can go across and get out. And then I've got to have enough space to get my bike parked in there, because I prefer it to be garaged and outside. And yeah, so when I go to park the bike, I like to put it as close to the wall as I can. And of course, the thing that stops me from going closer were those wide footrests. So I did end up buying another aftermarket footrest cover, which just means you remove this rubber piece. But it was only one-sided. It's actually didn't include the other side, and that is actually all they sell. It was ridiculous. So I decided just to put this one back on, and then I basically just didn't really think about changing it again. I just went back to stop. Alright guys, well this video has gone for probably 20 odd minutes now, so I think that's all I'll cover in this video for today. They're the common questions that I get. I'll do another video where I talk about other things next time, but I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or you haven't subscribed to the channel, please ask away, please subscribe, please look for my history of videos, and if you can't find what you're after, then please send a message on YouTube. Alright guys, that's all it is for today. Have a great one. I'll see you next time.